friends, we are going to look at a place called Westminster in Maryland. That's it there. It's northwest of Baltimore. It's largely a farming community, but I mean, don't be fooled. Don't think you'll just see farms. There's a built-up city as well, or at least they call it a city. This is Westminster, and this is what it looks like on the outskirts. I'm not going to bother in this video like I do with my other videos to name streets and all that. You could pick that up on your own. I just want to focus on the actual drive. Now, previous to my trip here, I had ordered a special item that allowed me to record from a mounted windscreen, but it didn't arrive in time, so I am actually holding my camera and recording this. Now, I am the passenger, not the driver, so that allowed me to give you a different angle. And I'm also recording in 5.3K. Normally the drives are done at a lesser resolution, but I decided to go for everything in this video and videos to come in 5.3K, at least when I'm abroad. Now, one of the first things that may stand out to you when looking at Westminster is the manicured lawns, the well-painted roads, and that overall look of clean and classy. I mean, everything looks like inviting. Lots of green, lots of trees. The properties in the outskirts tend to be on bigger plots of land. I believe there's a stipulation as to how much land each house must have, so they're not too close together. A lot of these were farms at one time and they were sold off. Actually, the Westminster name, I believe, came from the Westminster of England, which is a aristocratic place within England, the monarchy, and those associated with that. You shouldn't recognize the name Westminster. But the person who came from Westminster, his name was actually William Winchester, and he came as an indentured servant many centuries ago, settled here in Maryland, worked his time off, and bought land within this area. And at first he actually called it, I believe, Winchester Town. But the people, the community that formed after his death, changed the name to Westminster because a lot of their mail was being confused with an area nearby with a similar name. So they called the area Westminster. So we're stopping here for traffic. And even when we stop for traffic, you can see how the lawns, the roads, everything is in good repair, good shape, well taken care of. That's the first thing that I picked up when I was in Westminster. Everything is kept in order as far as infrastructure, the landscape, the grounds, all of that. It was just well done. This is not my first time to Maryland. I've been to Maryland many times and actually lived here for a few years prior, but I don't know if I ever came to Westminster. This may actually be my first time. But these long roads on the outskirts are very common. The way the trees and the houses are kept is also common in the outskirts. The inner part of Westminster, Westminster proper, is different, and we are going to see it today. We're going to have a look at that. Tell me how many potholes you can see, because I didn't see any. Well, no, maybe I saw one, but it was more like a part in the road that happened because of weather conditions and not an actual pothole. But all the roads are in good repair, and you can see whenever there are cracks, they use tar or whatever to have you to patch the road immediately, so the road maintains its smooth surface. Do not let the discoloration of the road fool you. This road is flat. And you may be asking, why am I emphasizing that? Well, I create videos for other places, and the roads are deplorable. And those of you who are fans on JB's Man Cave will know exactly what I'm talking about. I just panned a bit there and I showed you some of the farms. You'll see a lot of silos. Silos are where they keep grain or machinery or whatever inside a dome looking tall cylindrical unit. Silo. It's a Honda dealership. So here in the outskirts, you will see that things probably aren't as maintained. It all depends on the area, but still within fairly good repair. Now, this is something that you will see in Westminster in the outskirts that's unusual, but not uncommon for me in my experience, is that you would see a community and then something industrial or something related to farming or agricultural. So that, because that is what Westminster really is about. Of course, there is a university in the area, and that attracts a lot of intellectuals, people who want to study, those who may be called upon to teach or whatever, the professors. So they also live within the Westminster area. A lot of older folk here. Um, in my time here, I did not see a lot of people, young people, on the streets. Just one or two, and not that there aren't young people, but as you're traveling, you may think, well, where is everybody? Well, there aren't a lot of people walking around. Westminster is fairly big. There is not a public transportation system, and that's the downside of Westminster. So, and it's also another reason you don't see people walking around a lot, because there isn't any public transport to be used. So you don't see any buses or anything. There may be one central bus that comes from Westminster to other cities, but to say there's public transport to get around Westminster, no. Now, this is, I don't want to say a different class of houses, but you can see for yourself the difference between the suburbs and the urban areas and, well, Westminster proper, which is what we're coming to now. You'll see everything take on a more colonial American Revolution look. The way the houses are, I like to describe it sometimes like dolly houses, because when you see these dolly houses built for young children, they tend to have that look with the French style windows, the doors, and stuff. But this is typical architecture for the US, and especially for Westminster. Now, don't roast me, because I know the US is a big place and everybody will say, oh, no, it's not, and modern cities don't have that. Well, I'm not talking about elsewhere, I'm talking right here about Westminster. And this is Westminster proper again. And you can see the look. Actually, this street, the main street here, when I look at it, it reminds me a lot of Europe. Train tracks passing through it. A lot of places in the UK also look like this. The way the store layout is, the way everything is kept, and so forth. Now up ahead there's a school bus, and you see all those lights flashing and the children coming out and whatnot. And the reason we have to kind of stand still here is because you're not allowed to pass school buses when they stop and are letting out children, school children. So we have to wait it out. And while we do that, you can have a look at Westminster. So I really like the buildings. I like the layout. I like how things are kept. And again, you don't see many people walking around, right? I was told by my good driver that the area is somewhat like that too, because people are working, so you won't see them walking around that much. Which is evident, people have to work, make a living, unlike me getting a tour. And the person that's driving me around actually has a small car. So unlike my videos with my truck, you don't see a lot of the the bonnet covering your view. And being able to pan is also a help. This is a church with a stately look. This is where I like buildings to be built out of. You can see rock and solid clay. Of course, North Americans love to use wood, but wood as a trim, well, I guess is passable, but not when your whole house is wood. I always like to see houses in clay blocks or solid clay blocks or concrete or whatever, or stone. Of course, that's not within everybody's budget, but where possible. However, most houses are built with a lot of wood. Again, what stood out to me with Westminster is the trees. Lots of green, and people seem to take pride in their flowers and plants, like you saw when we passed that house there. You're still in Westminster proper. And there is a lot of big houses, a lot of small ones, and even the ones that don't seem to be as well kept still maintain their yard and grounds. So it's not like a lot of other areas that you may come across where that's the police department, I believe, yeah. Where you could visibly tell when something is in disorder, like the neighborhood might be bad or not well taken care of, or might be the criminal element. That's not so easy to tell sometimes in areas that manicure their surroundings. So you'd really have to know by word of mouth. This is the more built up area of Westminster. This main road here, this goes up and down, more or less north to south, kind of, I would say more northwest to southeast, in the way it's shaped. But anyway, on both sides of it has a lot of shopping areas, malls. So we, even though we came from Westminster proper, on this side here is where you would get all the modernization and the things that you expect to get from any typical place in the US. The junk food, the Walmart, the shopping areas, the mall and stuff. Interestingly, the mall here is fairly big, has a lot of interesting stores, but there wasn't a lot going on when I went. I think I may have footage, I'm not sure. But malls on the whole in the US on their way out. That particular mall I went to here in Westminster, a lot of these stores were closed and had a sign up saying that really they only open on weekends. So I don't know how that works out. There's another shopping area here. And these are what the outdoor shopping areas look like typically in Westminster. These are more better served. I mean, you see people here shopping and stuff more than if they went to one area that was a mall. So we went there, and now we back out again. It's the same road I said that runs up and down. That's the mall I was referring to. I mean, there are stores there, there's some big shopping areas and whatnot, but as far as it being like a busy place or lots of people, at least I did not see any of that happening. Unlike any typical mall, the things I thought were a bit more expensive. We're crossing right now some train tracks, bridge. It's another shopping area on the left and one on the right. That's Goodwill. People donate their stuff there, and then Goodwill sells it for a marginal amount of money so that people can invest and get stuff for themselves without paying the price of it new. And I actually have a separate video for that where I'll talk more about Goodwill. Well, not in this video. So as we're waiting here for the traffic light, I would like you to observe how many lanes there are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's just for one side. So that was one of the first things that stood out to me about Westminster. Are the roads are incredibly big. Even the roads that aren't really connected to the shopping areas here are pretty big and well serviced. But this particular strip here is pretty big. There's more shopping areas on the right and the left. And we are kind of leaving those shopping areas and passing into the more quiet communities. So I believe a Catholic church, very interesting look. And again, the emphasis on green. You can see how they use the trees in the middle. Some of the common names that you may be familiar with, we're also passing, like the purple plants or flowers in the median. There are a lot of little parks as well. Some of them I will be showing you in some other videos. Places, recreational areas where you can just walk around, get some time to think, look at the water, look at the trees or whatever have you. There are quite a few rivers, ponds, and I'm not sure if I'd call it lake or not, or if they have lake, but I haven't visibly seen it. But there are watered areas that you can visit. But besides that, Westminster proper and the busy shopping area that we just came for, what you're experiencing right now is more or less what you see a lot more of in Westminster, and that is roads with lots of green and things passed out. In other words, it takes a lot to get from point A to point B. And unless you have a vehicle, you would have a lot of walking to do, or cycling if you bike. Now, there are places actually designated for cyclists. Certain strips have a biking lane, which was really good. So it's a good place for biking. Actually, Maryland is one of the top places for biking because of its hilly areas. It poses a great challenge for cyclists, and they like the challenge. I actually developed my legs and my cycling abilities in my younger days from Maryland. And the further that we go away from Westminster proper, you can see that the roads transition into double or single lanes, but still well maintained and well kept. Everything in order. You also get to view a bit of the kind of vehicles in the area. People drive to go from point A to point B. Now, I'll talk about this in other videos, but my first encounters with people from Westminster, I found them to be very courteous. I was surprised by how courteous and how well mannered the people of Westminster are. Everywhere I went, I was greeted. I was shown kindness. People would open the door or whatever for me. It was thank you, please, whatever have you. And also, even when you're passing them on the lane, sometimes people would not even be near to you and they would be saying, excuse me, and whatnot. I didn't get that much well-mannered people when I was in Baltimore, and I was 20 years ago or more. So hats off to Westminster for raising a well-mannered citizenry. That was one of my first impressions about Westminster. Besides it, the obvious sparsity of things in that you must have a car and must be prepared to drive a fairly good distance to get from to anything of necessity as far as shopping or pharmacy or groceries, because those things are not nearby. They're kind of congregated in Westminster proper. So there aren't a lot of stuff on the outskirts to say, oh, I don't feel like going to Westminster. Let me just grab something here. No. Everybody has to go there. The surroundings are just communities. And I would imagine a lot of people here like it that way, because the less commerce around, the less people just walking around, or the area going down in value because of the commerce and so forth. And people here do care a lot about their property, the value of it, and who's around it, as they should. I wish we could adopt that kind of thinking in other places, and you know what I'm talking about, those of you who are fans of JB's Man Cave. So this is an example of, let's say, quote unquote country roads, and yet still you can see that they're all well marked. The surroundings are all well paved. Even the grass on the lawn looks like, very tidy. And there in the horizon you can see all the green, and that is what encompasses Westminster. Lots of green fields. I think later in this video you will also see some silos and some farms. So you will see, you see these very large houses, and then you may see something to do with farming, which was a bit odd for me, but I understand it as being, farmland first and foremost, and that people just simply began building around them. So you could see some of the farm equipment working there. You can see some of the silos I was talking about on the left, some of the large open properties on the right. Yeah? What do you think? Do you like Westminster? Do you like the layouts? Too much green for you? Tell me in the comments area what you think about Westminster. Have you ever been to Westminster? Tell me what are your thoughts and what was your reaction when you came here and what you encountered. Now, I have some more videos about Westminster coming up. Make sure to look for them along with my other videos. On JB's Man Cave, I cover the world. So don't think that, I just cover Westminster, or I just cover the US, or I just cover my homeland or Ukraine or whatever. No, I cover a lot of stuff. And when you come to JB's Man Cave, I hope that you are well entertained, even if it's not something that is typical for young people, which is games or something loud or something a bit lewd. I don't cater for any of those things. I cater for the stuff that matters in life, the raw, the real. And I appreciate you being here and part of it. So let me know what you think about this Westminster road trip. Your thoughts about the area. Would you buy a house here? Would you live here? Make sure to subscribe if you haven't. Like the video. Let your friends and family know.